Hello and welcome to Real Hi-Fi Help. So let's have a look at Vincent KHV 111 headphone amplifier review. So I've had this for quite a lot of years, and this has been a very interesting headphone amplifier. And if you've seen my channel before, I don't have a lot of good stuff to say about Vincent in general, and this is like one of the few times where I feel that, yeah, Vincent, they actually did a pretty decent job. I'll take my hat off for that. And it's actually one of their cheapest products, oddly enough. But I feel that this headphone amplifier does not get quite the attention that it should get. And of course, they've made better models that, of course, sound better. And yeah, I just wanted to bring that to you guys, to your attention. So I've owned this for several years, know it well, and I've just tried it with a lot of headphones. And I think I paid like $150 for this about 10 years ago, and sold it for about 4 years ago, fully modified. And yeah, just generally not a big fan of Vincent. I think Vincent generally, for me, is a brand that is just a yeah. It's for me it's a budget low end brand. And once in a while, yeah, they'll probably release a product or two that's a lot better, without a doubt. But I find that Vincent generally, with their products, have a way of giving you hope where you try to claw close to that, and it just doesn't deliver, and it falls apart when you try to zoom in on that sound. So I think it's fine when you're starting in hi-fi. You need something to start with, and that's probably some of the perhaps slightly better gear compared to the very worst gear out there. But I would never go back to Vincent and Musical Fidelity. For me, it just really, frustrated me going through that gear. And but yeah, having gone through that gear, I actually learned quite a bit about the better gear out there, how to appreciate certain things. So I think that it's still a necessary step that you, in a way, try gear like this, even though it has its problems. So and I have to say that this thing, for like $150 used 10 years ago, I mean, my God, the value that you get is just amazing. And let me just go into it here. And I think that, yeah, like I said, it's just a good start for people in the low end. And when they're messing around with low end gear, it can actually sound pretty okay, as long as you don't start putting gear that's just, far beyond this class range on it. It can sound fine with a lot of different headphones, even stuff like the HD 800 Mark 1, and I think it's called DT Pro 990 biodynamic phones. I felt that like this was like the sweet spot for this headphone amplifier. Like I used one of those high ohm version, and I feel it's so underrated that people just don't mention that enough in this world, that high ohm headphones, they have a tendency of giving you more bandwidth, more perceived depth. So I suggest that if you go with something like this, don't take a bright-ish low ohm headphone and put it on it, and then put like a source on it that's really bright, like a really bright CD player. I would suggest going for something a bit more warmish, and perhaps changing the standard tube to something that's just a bit more warm, and perhaps a bit more evolved. And I also got it modified at some point. I think I'll cover that a bit later. And just again, there's so many really crap low end transistor headphone amps in the world that cost a couple of $100, or maybe even just like 50, 100, 150, 200 or whatever. And I feel that this amp here, that's why I really wanted to do the review. It just has a really good value for that amount of money, and not a super duper headphone amp, but just like a really good start for people who want an extra system, they perhaps don't have, because they live in a flat, room for an extra set of speakers in an extra room with an extra amp. Then get something like this. This is a fantastic way of getting a very cheap, good value system that not a lot of people are keeping their eyes on, and you're kind of able to slip underneath the radar and find yourself a really good offer. And of course, headphone amps have really improved a lot in the lowest end. So all these videos that you see online, I mean, they are partially right with what they're saying. That they are pretty decent. Those couple of $100 headphone amps, even the transistor ones. But I still feel that this in a way gives you more value because it's underneath the radar and not many people are covering it. It's kind of an old dog, out of stock, not really focused on type of thing. I think that's kind of what I like to do with my channel. I have a tendency of focusing on the hidden gems of the hi-fi world. So this is in a way a hidden gem. Just know that it has its limitations. This still is lowest end gear, but I would say one of the better options, at least for the money. And you can just anybody could just so easily get this with like a DT 900 pair of headphones and a cheap CD player, and then for like a couple of $100, you have a setup. You have a whole setup that's going to last you several years. So that's kind of why I wanted to make this video. So I suggest pairing this with warmest towards neutral type of gear. And yeah, sometimes you can actually get away with the brighter side of the sound spectrum on this gear. And you have to know that, like with a lot of gear in the hi-fi world, it has a tendency of, kind of luring you in, promising you more, and in the end, you just end up hitting a wall where it just doesn't deliver. I feel that's that's really something that we experience a lot in the hi-fi world. I feel that especially once you come up to something that's close to the mid-class, and you deal with certain brands that are really expensive, they have this tendency of kind of luring you in where it seems to promise you that if you just do this, do that little tweak, then yeah, you're going to get a bit more control, a bit more power, a bit more detail, whatever. And I just find that with a lot of gear, also like this, even though it's a lot cheaper, you just hit a wall. You just can't get past that wall. And if you try to get past that wall, it falls apart. It almost becomes very flat, falls apart in pieces. And that's definitely something that I experienced when I took it over to my friend and he modified it. In a way, it became like 2 or 3 times better in a way. But in another way, we went past that point of keeping it safe in that zone, so we could get a lot of half crap gear to play with it. It was kind of set loose where the sound still fell apart, and yeah, I just have to know that that's the thing with modifying gear. You have to have a really, really good bass. I mean, the stuff that people don't think about, people that modify gear, and that is, you actually need some pretty decent boards that, what do you call these printbane? What's that called in in English. You know, where the components on the board stick onto these tracks. I don't know what it's called in English, but those are actually pretty bad quality on, I would say, most gear in the world. And that's one of the reasons why you can't use high quality parts on a lot of gear on the market, because it's those circuit boards and those pathways that the signal has to travel on. It's usually made with some really bad, low quality material that's at the level of the lowest quality soldering tin, and that makes it really difficult taking stuff like this, for example, or normal gear, out of its safety zone, where it's kind of adding all of this warmth to fix the sound. When as soon as you take it past that, it has a tendency of falling apart, a lot of gear. And usually because of that, you have to go up in class, and it's only when you start messing around with gear like YBA or EAR, or I wouldn't say Jadis, that there is gear below Jadis that you still can modify. Probably Mark Levinson and some Macintosh gear, older models. I would say that when you're messing with gear like that, then there's a like a promise that it can almost deliver on when you're modifying gear. But here, we took it too far. We took it like in 3 different stages, and it became better. It became a lot better, but you just reach a point where you kind of break it when you modify something too much, and you don't know 100% what you're doing. So I had a feeling of this to start with, but I enjoyed the journey of doing those, having my friend do those modifications, and I think that he also enjoyed it quite a bit, because he is a bit of an artist. So that was fun. That was fun. And what can I say more? It just has that simple warmness which kind of covers up a lot of its errors. That's kind of what I wanted to say. And I feel that when you remove that standard tube and go over to like a decent tube, you go away from this sort of plasticky, superficial, warmish type of sound that just generalizes things too much. And then you go like slightly deeper into it. Instruments sound actually pretty okay then. And you can just start pairing it with all kinds of things that usually sound a bit too screechy, a bit too noisy, a bit too harsh. I'm talking about ultrasone headphones, Sennheiser, perhaps like the biodynamic one. It has a bit of harshness in it and graininess, and I feel that this is just perfect. Just like a perfect complement. And you can still listen to music relatively at a high level with this, but not super duper high level. And I wish that it's a bit annoying that you have to adjust the left and the right side. You wish you had kind of a thing that controls both, because sometimes you kind of have to do one over here and then one like a notch more over there, and you can't really understand why. And it just that's just the world of low end gear. You have this sort of a not fully accurate type of sound where there's a bit of loss of signal and not the best components, and that's just stuff you have to live with. By the way, when you put this on, I can't remember if it's a blue or red light, but it's like really powerful. It just goes like an LED in your eye, like boff, So I think the guy that I bought it from had painted it black or something like that, so I never really noticed it. And then when I got it modified, the guy actually did something with it, so it was a lot more bright, and I kind of like that. I kind of like that. Again, it's all about the journey, the process of going through this, trying to see how much can you get out of this. What if you put the old biodynamic headphone that had 600 ohms on? What if you put the newer one that had like 60, 250? It could still sound a lot different, even though it's basically the same model, just over different years. And I just thought, the process of just doing all of this, being like a mad scientist, it's just fun, it's just fun. So, yeah, you just don't want to put it on really top end gear. That's just it. And conclusion, it's just really good choice, fair choice for the price. I feel that this kind of sets the bar for the lowest end gear. And I feel that once you listen to stuff like this, you just don't want to listen to, there's even stuff that costs 2, 3, 4 times more than this in the transistor area, which just is really harsh and too edgy and thin, where I feel that a lot of people just can't handle harsh sound. And if you're one of those types of people that just want a more smooth, creamy, a bit generalized and simple type of sound, this is for you. It's just a good start on a good system. So yeah, we're talking about, I think, about $500 maximum for buying this used, all these parts used together. The headphone, the CD player, this headphone amp. I think it costs like, I'm guessing in my country it's something like around $300 new. I can't remember. It changes a lot depending on Mark 1, 2, 3, or how many they made. This is like the first or second model that I got. So the newer models, I expect them to be better. They usually are. But yeah, just very good, and it just was so fun that you could get such a good sound for only something that I think it was only like 7 watts of power that it pulled, this thing, of electricity. So 7 watts, and I think it's an hour. That's just amazing for this type of sound, And of course, you're not going to get near a ear headphone amp, which is like, I think it's like 15, 20 times more the price in my country. It's not going to get near that, I feel that if you want something that's significantly better than this, of course, the biodynamic one, has better structure and does certain things better. Sennheiser, which is, of course, like 4 times more expensive. Certain elements that are better, of course, but still, I find that gear kind of trashy. Then we have Sugden, yeah. Then we're showing some real promise on something being basically better in every category. But I feel that you have to kind of get into ear headphone amps before we're really there. That before you have a sound that really satisfies all people with all headphones. And still, when you've reached that point, I still think it can get a lot better. I heard, I had my old Audio Maestro amplifier turned into a speaker and a headphone amplifier, so I could just switch between those two, and it just massacred that ear, which is like 15, 20 times more the price of this here, and it did it for something that was only, I think, 5 times more expensive than this. So it's all relative, it's all relative. And it's kind of cool. Just wanted to share that thought with you guys, and just my personal opinion. I feel that everybody that listens to headphone amplifiers, they should just forget transistor sound. I mean, don't get me wrong, it can sound pretty darn good, but usually it's at prices that are $5, $10, $15,000. And do you really want to use that type of money on a headphone amplifier? It's so much easier getting a random speaker amplifier that only costs a couple of $1,000, and then getting it transformed. Just take that to your technician, pay him like $500, and then it can play both speakers and be used as a headphone amplifier. And that headphone amplifier could especially if it's a 300 and B headphone amplifier, tube amplifier, it can beat so many headphone amps in the high end that costs $5,000 to $20,000, and that's just with shitty standard 300 and B tube gear. So just know that 300 and B tube sound with headphones, man, that's really that's really something that the industry should do more. And of course you can get stuff like a Macintosh headphone amp, and I think they just released a tube one. They made a transistor one, which was kind of fine, just really expensive as always. And they made a tube one. I haven't tried that, and I guess that's also a fine sound. But again, with that amount of money, I wouldn't pay that. I would just get like a normal 300B amp, Chinese, Japanese, whatever, French, Swiss, whatever, that only costs a couple of $1,000, and then just get that converted, and then you can switch between your speakers and your headphone. That's smart. Then you have two then you've got two systems there for only a couple of $1,000, including having it upgraded. That's smart. That's really smart. So I just wanted to share that with you guys, and like and subscribe if you can.